are these people?
Bill Maher, Bill Maher, had on the tablecloth dress wearing Krystal Ball on his show.
You can't say that, and for people who don't know, give context to that.
Oh, I guess I should find that, huh?
You could probably do that after the segment, but
yeah. Well, I mean, it shouldn't take me long. It's someone probably just retweeted it. I know where I can go. Just one of these DMs real quick. Steph, and then this one.
Yeah. By the way, Reef last week, just to give profit to this, was so proud of this.
I was. You try getting 2,000 likes. So
they have gotten 2,000 likes recently on a tweet.
Nice. So. Nice. But anyway,
bitches.
But these tablecloths are great. I'm going with I kind of am going to go with red tablecloth.
Yeah. I think the way I think the way Brie is wearing hers looks a lot better. Krystal's just kind of
the arms are weird.
Shoulders are
it's weird.
Krystal is just it literally looks like she's
anyway,
literally wearing a tablecloth.
And Joan, what do you think? Oh my God.
Anyway.
But this guy, which, Brianna Joy Gay did retweet me, quote tweeted me even, which good for her for having the humor on that. Good for you.
Yeah.
Krystal, CNN's new boss wants the network to steer away from sensational, hyper-partisan coverage. Yes, I saw that. CNN, you can't refer to the election as the big lie or Trump's big lie as the big lie. Which, again, I'm totally on the page of it was the big lie, but I think that's the right thing.
Yes.
Now you're MSNBC, even though it's sort of like Jack Del Rio. He's totally wrong, but I defend his right to be wrong. Okay. Do you think CNN will actually stick with this new plan?
No. They actually. Listen, my issue isn't actually with opinion journalism. If you're upfront about what your lens is, no problem with that whatsoever. I do have a problem when it blinds you to facts and honesty. And I think both CNN and MSNBC, their maximalist ideas in terms of Russiagate didn't end up working. So that's the issue I have there. Will it work? No. Because ultimately, what's going to happen? Trump's going to come back. Guess what's going to rate? The people who go, the furthest in on Trump, that's what's going to get the best ratings. This is a business. It's a business model. I think it's an abhorrent one that leads to a disaster for America. I think it's a cancer on society, all of the cable networks. But ultimately, those are the incentives they respond to. So, no, I don't think it's
So
gonna
what do you
really
mean
change.
by maximalist ideas about Russia?
Like the P-tape stuff.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Steele dossier.
MSNBC floating that he's been a Russian asset since 1985. All that sort of stuff.
The Senate Intelligence Committee, which is controlled by Republicans, said that Trump's involvement with Russia was a grave national security threat.
Okay, but that's not the same as saying Putin has a P-tape and servers are bouncing back and forth.
P-tape was always lurid, and who knows?
Right. If you don't like that one, then let's talk about the lab leak and the idea of where the coronavirus came from and the fact that these outlets said that not only could it, no way could it come out of the lab, but that's racist to say. So
I've been all over that.
That's what I'm saying is I have an issue when your ideology blinds you to the facts.
I have that issue every week on this show.
Yes. Yes, I don't have an issue with opinion journalism is what I'm saying.
But the idea that Russia and Trump were inappropriately intertwined. His campaign manager, Manafort, was sharing polling information with this guy Kalimnik, who was
the Mueller report found that there was no collusion, and we were promised this. We were promised this for 3 years.
They overpromised,
and it was really in cable news.
But there wasn't
cable
nothing.
News every day.
There wasn't nothing.
It was something else.
There was something.
It wasn't nothing.
But you know what? The truth was bad enough with Trump and Russia.
Correct.
Why did they have to embellish it?
You're right.
Why did they have to
Right.
embellish it?
What he did in public
Was bad enough.
Right.
We disqualified him for the presidency.
Right.
When he said that maybe maybe Russia can keep Crimea.
Oh,
that to me
well, how about
was
How
disqualifying.
about siding with Putin?
That too.
At Helsinki.
Right.
Like, my 17 intelligence agencies tell me one thing.
It was a disgrace.
I got to go with you, Vlad.
It was a disgrace, but they couldn't.
But just side with America. Is that a big ask?
The problem with so many people in the media, they couldn't take that alone. It had to be this Baroque conspiracy going back to
Right.
1987. He was recruited by the KGB.
Right.
I mean, it was such a scandal, actually, when you look back on it, how we were deluded by this.
What we were sold and
what we were
what the
sold.
reality was were not the same.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone
but
can say
since
that
he
that was the
doesn't
case.
care about, he's a clinical narcissist.
But our standards
who
should
doesn't-
not fall
I know,
because of him.
But the idea that he would do that is completely believable, and he would have done it.
Well, that's why people bought it. But
Well,
if you're in the news business, I mean, that's
Right.
why
If
I
you're-
think cable
correct,
news
right.
is such a cancer, is because ultimately
Right.
it is just about the ratings. They don't care they got it wrong. They're
Yeah.
never going to correct
They'll
the
never
issues.
Couldn't
And
agree
so
more.
is
Right.
that going to change with the new boss? No.
And it's just about
No, it's
saying
not.
the things that make your audience go,
Yep.
yes, I already
Right.
believe that. Thank you for reinforcing what I
and
believe.
never letting anything
Never-
outside
not
of the bubble in. And
any-
that's Fox.
I just want to pause real quick. Do you notice that like the audience had to really refrain from after his moment, like doing
Yeah.
that? They had to think about it for a second. And also the fact that like Bill Maher mad that someone's a narcissist. I feel like that's pot calling kettle, you know?
Right.
Fox News, that's
I-
MSNBC. That's
Exactly.
CNN. Yeah.
Okay, Danny, if you could write a screenplay about
Okay, that's done.
Okay.
But I would love to know what people in chat thought overall.
Actually, I have a thought on this because
Please.
like I haven't watched the whole thing. Like I've seen this interview. Well, honestly, can we call this an interview? Like,
I mean, no, I mean it's a panel show.
Is
Is
it though?
I mean, I think it's considered. What do they call that? Like it used to be like. What was the other one? You know, it's a table show or whatever, right?
Okay.
Like, you
All
know.
right, well, okay. So I'm just thinking in terms of like when Krystal was on Bill Maher's show. I think when at his old show,
Yes.
like that was more of an interview. Like I don't remember, to my knowledge, it's been a while since I've seen clips of that show that Krystal did. You know,
Yeah.
but it was just the two of them. So, you know, and they were having like this back and forth. This time it's just like these two goons like talking over Krystal and like, you know, barely having her get a word in, almost I feel like on purpose, because they didn't want her to talk. Like, I mean, in light of all the reporting that we've done in Krystal, like I don't have love for Krystal in that way, but she
Right.
was speaking truth to a lot of the issues here. And I feel like those two were there probably just to kind of like, we know that Krystal is going to say a lot of shit, so we have to kind of talk over her to make sure that she doesn't say the things that the mainstream media doesn't want us to say. You
Yeah.
know, that's kind of how I felt like watching this. And, you know, and Krystal just kind of, I mean, in that situation, I'm not sure what, if I was in that position, I'm not sure what I would do. It like, especially since this was taped, you know,
Yes.
but I felt like we've seen Krystal push back on Sagar, like back in the day when they were
Well,
both on Rising.
it's funny-
A lot hard and like a lot harder back then. And like, she was just so tepid
Yeah.
here, which
Well, and
I'm kind of like,
It feels like Krystal Ball was always, even when she was at the Hill, someone to like push up against, you know, like Brian Grimm, similar to how like Iverson now like is
Right.
almost in that slot, but she does a far better job, Kim. But like I'd love to know what people in chat actually thought of the substance of what she was saying, and I find it interesting specifically that they talk about the lab leak theory which I know they, accused a few people of being conspiracy theorists when that was being talked about. Now it's acceptable knowledge, right? And it's acceptable knowledge on cable television, pretty much. Not even like premium, because this is on HBO.
Right.
And
whereas not so long ago, like if we were talking about it like it was a leak,
yeah,
you were banned essentially from YouTube for talking about it in that way.
Yeah. I mean, so, and I know there's another clip of her coming at Maher again, and I think it was over like the $2,000 checks she pushed back on, saying that that's not the reason for inflation.
The CARES, I think the CARES Act, I believe, like I know Jimmy reported on that, like Bill Maher basically didn't know shit as far as like the stock market crashed like around that time, and Bill was like, no,
I like the one guy backing her up on the little bit of like pushing back on Russiagate, which like it's a very slight little pushback, right? Like she's definitely like really mincing her words there, like, and choosing carefully what she's saying, like so much so that I'm like, are you even really, like to me that's a whole loaf you work on, but I don't know, Indy. I probably could go back and look, but like,
I mean, like to me, I didn't care for them, I'm sure they were just there to just kind of deflate Krystal's talking points. That's pretty much what I felt their role was for, just so like people wouldn't necessarily hear what Krystal had to say, because like again, Krystal doesn't say everything right sometimes, especially given the talking points she's had on Breaking Points as of late. But a lot of the stuff that she was saying in the few clips I've seen of her talk about it, she was spot on.
Right.
And, so they can have that, especially even though it's cable.
But no, I mean, I like I'll give her a slight, like, I mean, like, you get like 2% of a gold star. You get like the worst gold star in the bag of gold stars. The one that's like bent at the bottom. It's not even shiny. Like, but Tara Reid would like to remind us that Bill Maher went after her publicly and viciously twice without ever speaking to her. Yet he is the ideal of some independent content creators like Krystal Ball, Sagar, and Kyle Kalinske, which she leaves out. Why is he admired? Of course, he has an elaborate set and budget. And she's posting Bill Maher's take on new rule, sex monster. So Tara got a reply from this individual. Krystal gave you what few else did, a platform to tell your story and acknowledge the credibility of it. It's places like Bill Maher's platform where she can attempt to get his audience to see we are headed in the wrong direction as a country. So, completely dismissed, like, what Tara was saying due to the fact that Krystal's nice.
Yeah.
Like, like,
and like we've talked about this, I think, within the network. I think especially in like the article that Indy, Crab, and Dissent wrote. Yes, it was good for Krystal and Ryan Graham to cover Tara, regarding her accusations regarding Biden.
Yeah.
But they haven't followed up with her since then.
Right.
They took that story, Tara got some coverage, in mainstream a little bit. I think due to independent media, like mainstream was like, okay, we have to cover this story. And they did, but then after that, after those 15 minutes of, coverage, you know, I don't feel like now someone can check me if I'm wrong in the chat. I don't think Krystal has necessarily mentioned her again. I don't think Ryan has necessarily mentioned her again, and so like, but Tara is still, like, just as far as her story is still like, she hasn't gotten any justice from that. And right now, she's trying to start her own podcast through our network, and she gets smeared constantly,
Yeah.
due to like, I don't see Ryan or Krystal backing her up in that. So it's just kind of like, you used her for, your prestige, like, or getting some attention, given like this was during the time when during the primaries, like, but they didn't take anything more other than what they were able to get from her, like, after that.
Yes.
So for me, it just kind of comes off as disingenuous, like,
Well,
you just used her for your own gain, for your own means,
yes.
and you tossed her aside.
Right. Yeah. Where have they been lately? But I wanted to continue a little bit. So I kind of bring this up because, as Cynic puts in the chat, I'm sorry, but why is anyone expecting anything from any of these people? And I'll tell you why slightly. There's a multitude, but specifically for this instance, someone already did that before. On Maher, right, has already brought up Tara Reid. When Krystal, who, I would like to point out, gave Tara what few else did, quote, right? A platform, right? So you like her enough to bring her on to, like, tell her story about this, when we know, because Tara pointed this out when you announced, right? And, like, I imagine you still read her tweets, but Tara continues to this person that I would assume she would bring up what Biden did to me or what he said or Rose, talking about Rose McGowan, which we'll get to in a second. I do not owe anyone anything for telling the truth. I don't have to beg for a platform. I am sick and tired of hypocrisy. It enables the monsters. Couldn't agree more. And she brings a article about Bill Maher and Charlemagne the God, who, if anyone is mourning the cancellation of the Wendy Williams show, probably big fan of Charlemagne, but so this article talks about real-time host Bill Maher had a heated exchange with radio host Charlemagne the God over sexual misconduct allegations against Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. And Tara's had many of the people that called out Cuomo, on her show, and people should go check that out. I think it's one of her first podcasts in there. It was really good. I can't remember the lady's name. I'm sure Indy will tell me. But yeah, and President Biden. So during a panel discussion Friday night about whether Cuomo needs to resign, Maher began by declaring he does not need an investigation into the sexual harassment allegations that have surfaced against Cuomo, insisting it's always on a case-by-case basis and that I believe these women completely. Charlemagne, however, told Maher it's kind of hard to ask Cuomo to resign when you voted for Joe Biden.
Right.
Going hard right off the bat there, Charlemagne. Good for you. He explained, if I weren't more upset with Joe Biden, who had more, he explained, if you weren't more upset with Joe Biden, who had more serious allegations. No, he didn't, Maher exclaimed. Yeah, he was accused of actual rape, Charlemagne said. No, he wasn't, Maher doubled down. What are you talking about? Charlemagne gasped. Are you talking about the hallway incident? Maher asked. Tara Reid, Charlemagne responded. Good for you, my friend. Good for you. Good
in
for
this
you.
one instance.
In this one instance, good for you. Do more of this. Well, I mean, he was the one that got like did he not get Joe Biden doesn't think you're black? Wasn't that him too?
That was him, but I have
And
I
then
mean,
Kamala Harris,
and then
he got
Kamala,
something out of
I
her
mean,
too.
He's had his moments, you know.
Yes.
I give him credit for those moments, but
Yeah. He's also got some weird stuff, like most of us do.
Yeah.
But so, well, I don't believe that. Maher quickly dismissed Biden's accuser. That's what I'm saying. Some I believe, some I don't. That's my right. I don't believe her. These women I believe completely. I don't think that Joe Biden is the guy who finger bangs you in the hallway. I don't. I just don't. What are you basing that? Have you not? Anyway, the Breakfast Club co-host stressed that while he wasn't saying he believed Reed's claims either, he pointed out her allegations were more serious than Cuomo's, and yet I didn't hear people asking him to resign or drop out of the race. New York Times columnist Frank Bruni pointed out that Biden had repeatedly denied Reed's allegations, comparing the denial to Cuomo's non-denial about at least one of his accusers. The conversation then pivoted to the allegations other women made about Biden's inappropriate touching, which Maher stressed was a different issue. That's when he was sniffing their hair, Maher told Charlemagne. The first allegation was just, it wasn't even a Me Too. Even though it was interpreted that way in the press, it was just he was trying to do an old man thing. Hey man, harassment is harassment, Charlemagne said. Like, killing this interview, bro. No, it's not, Maher shot back. I don't think we can tell women the difference between sniffing hair and saying something inappropriate, because I think sniffing hair is just as inappropriate as saying something, Charlemagne said. Maher then went to bat for Biden, explaining the Democrats were just trying to show Lucy Flores encouragement.
By sniffing her hair.
Right. Anyway, she was just
would
about.
you appreciate it? Would you feel encouragement by me if I sniffed your hair?
I mean, yes, because my beard smells amazing, but I make sure of that. You know, I would feel insulted if you didn't, honestly. You know, but having said that, that's me, and don't kink shame me, okay? But like this to me is very clearly like this is a Jesus Christ here. I mean, Maher's had plenty of bad takes, right? He's supported, female teachers, like taking power over young male students, right? He was one of those classic guys that went that way with it. But
yeah, but I think this just proves, and I think just being in this space, just the hypocrisy, if this were Trump, and I'm sure I'm sure this was the case, like with Trump, like they'll go all in,
Yes.
being like, oh, I believe this person because it's not connected to their party, if anything, because it's like, it helps their party to kind of condemn the other, in this case. But like when it's their own, then it's like, then they don't call that out. And, it's funny because I just had a conversation with a parent a couple of weeks ago, over like an issue, like my kids are young, they're like 4 and 5 years old, they hit each other, they don't have control of their bodies, basically. So, and the mom had a complaint about that, like she was worried that her child basically came home and said he was scared or whatever else, and so I basically told her, because there was an instance where I saw what happened and I talked to both boys directly during the lesson,
yes.
Like if someone tells you not to do something, you stop,
Right.
But basically teaching them the idea of consent,
Yeah.
funny enough, I think now it's more of a necessary thing, in this day and age, but, the fact that I have to teach my students, the idea of like people, you have a right to your body, and like people don't have the right to touch you if you don't want to be touched. You have the right to say no.
Right.
And and like even if you like if someone touches you, like you have the right to say like don't do that, whatever, I don't like that or whatever. So so all of that to say, how is it that like people were able to believe Ford when she came out against Trump, and like everybody was all up in like, oh, we must believe all women, and all this kind of stuff. And honestly, and I'm going to say this because I know it might be a controversial take, but I'm going to say anyway.
Okay.
I didn't believe in the idea of like believing all women. I believe in the idea of seeking truth. Like, I
Right.
believe you should listen to them and follow up with them to discover what the truth is, because
Yeah.
the truth is some women can lie, like I know that for a fact for certain situations, but give the women the room. Like if someone comes to that and tells you something like that, then you listen to them and follow up with them, to ensure that, if
Right.
it happened or not,
Yeah.
like I wouldn't necessarily give carte blanche to like believing all women per se, but they use that, like the Democrats use that in terms of Me Too, but then like when Tara Reade came out, it was like people had such a hard like twisting in knots and being like,
oh yeah, but
we said believe all women, but this doesn't fit our narrative, and this like this is the person
Right.
that we want,
Yes.
so it like they basically caught themselves,
Yeah.
in terms of like not following through with what they were saying, believe all women.
Right.
So
And speaking of believe all, they're also talking about Cuomo here, who he's saying like should resign, right? And Tara Reade had Karen Hinton on her show, who's one of the accusers there. People should go check that
thanks,
out.
Indy.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Indy Left. Apparently Misty needs me to make a meme. What meme am I tasked by the great and powerful Misty into making? Our glorious cult leader, Sarcasm Stardust. I love every time Jimmy brings her on or says something about her. It's like Misty Putin, like it's like, no, you should get that it's Misty is Putin's body, because you kind of made the whole joke. That's like your joke, man. I mean, I feel you, bro. Weed's a powerful drug. All right, I get it. But anyway, so it continues. She was just about to make a speech. He came up behind her just to be like, "You're going to do good out there, honey," Maher told the panel before acting out a Biden sniff. "Let's not pretend that we live in the world where all these things are the same." I agree with that, Charlemagne conceded. The real-time host went on to slam Cuomo for denying he was trying to make advances towards his accusers. "Yes, you were," Maher said. "Just to be real about it, I'm lonely, I'm horny. I mean, there's nothing sadder than a man with no game." Tara Reade slammed Maher as an abhorrent expert in sexual misconduct, telling Fox News, "I dare him to speak to me or have me on his show since he disparages me." Reade, who previously served as a staffer for then Senator Biden, came forward last year claiming that her former boss sexually assaulted her. Both Biden and his presidential campaign repeatedly denied her allegations. So, yeah, that's fun stuff. Also, meanwhile, 3 women came forward with their own claims against the embattled New York governor. Lindsey Boyan, the former deputy secretary for economic development and a special advisor to Cuomo, accused the Democrat last week of making sexually charged comments, unwanted touching, and forcibly kissing her on the lips during a one-on-one briefing. Cuomo's office has denied her claims. Charlotte Bennett, an exclusive assistant and health policy advisor in the Cuomo administration, alleged to the New York Times on Saturday that the governor asked her inappropriate questions about her sex life in his office. The third woman, Anna Rush, told the Times on Monday that Cuomo touched her bare lower back and asked if he could kiss her during a wedding reception in 2019. So, yeah, as well as, you know, like that guy being shitty. Tara Reid wants to point out that Maher himself has had plenty of run-ins with sexual misconduct, specifically to none other than Rose McGowan. Which, like, come on, man. Like, you can't be bad to both of these women. Like, that's, you know. Anyway, she's retweeting Rose McGowan. And Rose McGowan types, at Bill Maher, here's a memory I'd like to share with you. I bet you don't remember, but I sure do. I was so excited to be on your show and get to flex my mind instead of my face. Here's what happened. All I can say, Bill, you got the face you deserved. So, you know, like more people reply to Tara. He has had 2 successful political talk shows. His career spans decades. He hasn't been caught up in any scandals and corruption. So I think there are plenty of people who grew up watching him or have grown old with him. Tara Reid again responds with this article from The Wrap about Rose's tweet. So Rose McGowan accused Bill Maher Friday night of whispering in her ear that he had a huge cock when she was a guest on his defunct late-night show, Politically Incorrect, in the 1990s. Bill Maher, here's a memory I'd like to share with you. I bet you don't remember, but I sure do. Right? We just read all that, right? She wrote on Twitter, along with a screen grab of a previous tweet of hers. I was on your show, Politically Incorrect, in the late 90s. As the show returned from a commercial break, you leaned over to me and whispered in my ear, my parents didn't give me a good face, but they did give me a huge cock, she wrote. I could feel your hot breath on my ear as an image of both your hideous face and alleged big cock flashed in my mind. Both turned my stomach. I've always wondered what you'd sick say and do to the girls that aren't famous. Maher hasn't responded to the accusation on Twitter yet, and The Wrap has reached out to him for comment. During the New Rules segment of Maher's HBO show Friday night, he talked at length about Tara Reid, who accused presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden of sexual assault in 1993. In the segment, Maher questioned the legitimacy of Reid's claims, saying, we're letting this person change the subject from the Donald Trump lethal incompetent to Joe Biden sex monster? She literally wrote a love letter to the murderer trying to keep Biden from the White House. He went on to add, I don't know if you noticed, but America has turned into a failed state that does a worse job getting its citizens alive during a pandemic than Cambodia, and to me, there's a little more important than Tara Reid achieving closure. She says Biden attacked her, and he says he didn't. Those are their positions. How about this for yours? Don't know, never will, don't care.
Don't care. Well, he doesn't have to care.
No.
Because he's rich.
Yes.
He doesn't have to care. So
yes.
Sam Cedar, I don't care. Like, yeah,
yes.
I mean, God, I wish I was rich in a sense just to see the temptation there. But
right?
I think, but you know, like it just proves that Bill Maher he's a shill for the Democratic Party basically at this point. Like, he's going to say whatever he needs to say to protect the Democratic Party, you know, and I know you and I know plenty of people, especially in this space like that. But, you know, again, like for me, you know, it's mostly the hypocrisy of it all. Like if you're able to call out Trump for his, you know, accusations, then you should be more than willing to call out your own. I think probably more so. If they're able to do the same thing. And more often than not, like, again, it's just a mental gymnastics of being like, oh, like, the Republican bad, and like, you know, so yeah, I could easily kind of, you know, attack them, but like, oh, it's on my team, so like, I have to kind of keep it on the hush hush and like defend them, even though like, there's probably in this case more evidence, you know, Biden doing like similar shit. You know, so it's like,
openly
given like what we
sniffing
know about
little girls and like, you know, adult women and you know, I mean, among many powerful men, you know, so, but,
Right. Like
you
I
know,
live in DC, and like someone has told me this. Like if you hang out around the White House around, I'll say 3, 4 o'clock in the morning,
yeah,
you would see some things. You know, I'm not gonna go into details, but you can kind of guess what kind of goes down in that area of the city around that time.
yeah,
You know, that's in terms of like some of the depravity that you can imagine that's happening among the elite, and
right,
maybe not so elite, or people trying to be among the elite. So you can
yeah,
use your imagination, but like that's what I've been told. But I'm, you know, it's here, so I'm pretty sure that's more likely true if anything else. But
yeah. So in case people didn't know, McGowan spoke up publicly for the first time about sexual misconduct allegations against Harvey Weinstein. She says, I have been silenced for 20 years. I have been slut shamed. I have been harassed. I've been maligned. And you know what? I'm just like you, she told the crowd, because what happened to me behind the scenes happens to all of us in this society, and that cannot stand, and it will not stand. She has since been a vocal supporter of victims of sexual misconduct and assault. But yeah, I mean, I feel like someone like Krystal Ball, who has had Tara Reid on, right?
mhm,
And there's been a precedent of talking about Tara Reid to Bill Maher himself, right? You know,
right,
you don't figure out a way to mention that at all when talking about Biden, or, you know, especially when talking about how Trump's P tapes were, you know, like ridiculous, while also ignoring, you know, like the unequivocally true allegations of, you know, INN member Tara Reid. So
but I think even for Crystal, she has her own mess too. Like, wasn't
yes,
she like I forgot exactly what it was, but wasn't she like, I think when she was running for Congress, like a story came out like in regards to her,
having
like
allegations against someone, right?
well, but I think in terms of her having like a sex toy or something like that with
So
like
that was also,
her
that was two, the
husband.
TYT played it, by the way, which I just
Oh, they
find
did.
like, I remember this very clearly because it was like, you know, it was some like raunchy college party photos or whatever
Right.
that like had gotten leaked, and like, you know, TYT essentially reported it by pulling up those photos.
Of course they did.
Like, anyway, that was on top of another allegation I think that Krystal Ball made when she was working somewhere, that like didn't play out, I don't think, right? You know, but I don't remember, along with PAC money stuff and super fun nonsense. But
Right. But I mean, I said all of that just to kind of say, like, Crystal has gone through it, and I
yeah,
think she's fought back against it now. But
yeah,
so you would think that she would be a better advocate for, and I mean, she did give her a platform, you know, initially, but not since. So it
yeah.
just kind of, to me, it's just kind of like, well, why did you bother? Why did you have her on Rising then? You know, if you
Well,
weren't going
and
to necessarily advocate for
just
her, you know,
just
but
to
I
make
think,
sure
you know, like,
people are people are consistent. Tara Reid, I know, called out Marianne Williamson for the same thing, for going on Bill Maher and not mentioning her, right?
right.
And like, you know, anyway,